British novelist, film producer, television producer and screenwriter. You may know her from the book series Harry Potter. The books have won multiple awards and sold more than 500 million copies, becoming the best-selling book in history. They have also been the basis for a film series, over which Rowling overall had approval on the script and was a producer on the final films in the series. As a child, J.K. Rowling wrote fantasy stories which she read to her sister Diana. Her teenage years were unhappy. Her home life was complicated by her mother's diagnosis with multiple sclerosis and a strained relationship with her father. She based the character Hermione from Harry Potter on herself when she was 11. Her mother died after 10 years suffering from multiple sclerosis. J.K. Rowling was writing Harry Potter at the time, but she never told her mother about Harry Potter. The death of her mother affected her writing, and she channeled her own feelings about loss in the first book of Harry Potter. Harry Potter struggles also with the death of his mother. J.K. Rowling knows how to describe that very well because of her own experience. The book series contains 7 parts. The novels are about Ron, Hermione and Harry, who all go to the same wizard school, called Hogwarts. Harry's enemy is Lord Voldemort. He intends to become immortal. I read the books myself, and I really like them. I like the way J.K. Rowling writes. She writes in a way that it seems like you're there yourself. You really get to know the characters in the books. Everybody really likes the books. It's written for young and old. Harry Potter contains many parts, but unlike other series, Harry Potter doesn't get boring. In 1992, she married George Arantes. In 1993, she got her first child, Jessica. Later that year, the couple separated. Biographers have suggested that J.K. Rowling suffered domestic abuse during her marriage. I think many of you don't know what domestic abuse is. Domestic abuse is violence or another abuse by one person against another in a domestic setting, such as in a marriage. She saw herself as a failure. Her marriage failed and she was jobless with a dependent child. During this period, she was diagnosed with clinical depression and contemplated suicide. Her illness inspired the characters in the book, well known as the Dementors. Dementors are self-sucking creatures introduced in the 3rd book. Rowling signed up for welfare benefits. Being poor as it is possible to be as a modern Briton without being homeless. In 1995, she finally finished her first manuscript from the book Harry Potter. It was rejected by 12 publishers. After a year, Bloomberg finally picked it up. Although Bloomberg picked it up, editor Cunningham advised her to get a day job, since she had little chance to make money in children's books. In 2004, Forbes named J.K. Rowling as the first person becoming a US dollar billionaire by writing books, and she was put on the rich list. In 2012, Forbes removed her from the rich list because she donated a lot of money to charity. She was the first person that lost her billionaire status by donating money to charity. She even launched her own charity called Lumos.
Power for me is a very difficult issue. I'm suspicious of people who want power, which I think comes across quite strongly in the books. But I have come to accept that if you are in a position to give, for example, a lot of money to a cause, then that gives you power, because money can be a very powerful tool. If you have a profile, that means you can give a voice to a cause that otherwise wouldn't have such a loud voice, and that is also a form of power. But for me, it's a slightly more complicated issue than that, because I think as an author, you know, I chose a career path that traditionally does not lead to a lot of power. And so I think I really am not being disingenuous when I say that any form of power that's come to me through Harry Potter was very, very unexpected.
In 2013, she was called the most powerful woman in the UK by Woman's Hour and BBC Radio 4. She made her characters independent, intelligent, and opinionated.
I'm a female writer, and what's interesting about the wizarding world is when you take physical strength out of the equation, a woman can fight just the same as a man can fight. A woman can do magic just as powerfully as a man can do magic. And I consider that I've written a lot of well-rounded female characters in these books.
She said, "Let my girls be Hermiones, rather than Pansy Parkinson."
Able to play her. I would like to think that Hermione is a role model for girls You see, I was a plain, and that is relevant. That, you know, that is relevant. That's not a trivial thing when you're a kid. I was a very plain, bookish, freckly, bright little girl. I was a massive bookworm. And I spent a significant part of my reading looking for people like me. In creating Hermione, I felt I created a girl who was a heroine, but she wasn't sexy. Nor was she the girl in glasses who's entirely sexless. Do you know what I mean? She's a real girl. She's a girl. She fancies Ron, but her hopes initially are pretty low, and she's a real girl. But she never compromises on being a smart girl. She never compromises in acting dumb. She never tries to make Ron feel better by pretending to be less than she is, which is why they don't get together a lot sooner. That's the reality of life. But I'm proud of Hermione. She is who she is, and if that, you know, if that spoke to girls like me, then of course I'm hugely, hugely proud of her.
She also embraces self-love. She said, I mean, is fat really the worst thing a human being can be? She values humans beyond their physical looks, weights, and measures. J.K. Rowling, a strong feminist who started with nothing and always stayed positive. Someone who isn't afraid to stand up for what she believes in. Who embraces self-love, who inspires an entire generation to love reading and girls to embrace their intelligence. She's the first person to lose her billionaire status by donating money to charity. And the first author in the world to reach a net worth of $1 billion. A person who started her own charity and never gave up.